Hey everyone, welcome back to Max Solo Music, and in this video we're gonna test some speakers. If you live in Europe, just like I do, or even if you don't, chances are you've never played anything but Celestion, because this brand is just so dominant when it comes to guitar speakers. But I can name at least two more, Jensen and Eminence. I've played Jensen quite a bit. I even have a cab loaded with a 10-inch Jensen speaker, which I never use. When it comes to Eminence though, I've probably played it like twice in my life. There was a Fender Deluxe reverb combo with a generic Eminence speaker inside, and once I've played Palmer Fat 50 amp loaded with the Eminence Governor speaker. But that was so long ago, and I've never had one here in my lab to properly test it. Well, now I have one, and we're gonna check it today. Not only that, we'll compare it to probably the most common speaker nowadays, which is Celestion Vintage 30. But you already knew that if you're following me on Instagram, because I've posted a couple of stories about that. If you're not following me yet, well, I'd really appreciate if you do. Alright, let's go back to the video. Here's the actual speaker that we'll be testing today. I've taken it out of the Palmer cap that I'll show you in a bit. It is the Eminence The Governor 8 ohm model 75 watt. Designed and assembled in the USA, and the serial number says it was made in 2020. And this is a standard modern days vintage 30 speaker that I've taken out of one of my other cabs. This one is 8 ohm as well, and when I said standard, I meant T3903A specs, which are the most common specs for vintage 30 speakers. Made in China, and judging by the serial number, it was in May 2013. Which is not as fresh as the other one, but it still is a good representation of the speaker that comes in hundreds or maybe thousands of guitar cabinets built today. Looking at these two speakers from the front, there isn't much of a difference, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell which one is which unless you knew exactly what to look at. And by the way, none of these speakers is broken in, because I've never played that cab actively, so both of them are in pretty much the same condition. Not all speakers are the same weight. Usually when it comes to guitar cabinets, they're just heavy, and another 100 or 200 gram don't really matter. Still, that will not stop me from putting these two on a scale. And we've got 4.8 kilos for the Governor and 4.6 for the Vintage 30. To eliminate any inconsistency in my guitar playing, I've used this looper pedal to record some samples, and I'll be playing them back through the amp. So with the same sample, amp settings, microphones and mic positions, the speaker is going to be the only variable. And by the way, if you want those samples that I use in this video, for whatever reason, maybe your own tests or anything, you can download them for free from my website. I'll give you a link in the description. These are the microphones I'll be using in front of the cab, and our secondary objective today is to figure out which one of these mics will be the best match for clean, crunch and high gain sounds. At any time during the test, in that corner you can see what microphone and speaker is being used. Here's the backside of the cabinet I'll be using for this video, and as you can see, it is a 1x12 open back cabinet with the Eminence Governor speaker inside. And here's what it looks like from the front. Palmer sent it to me a few months ago, and yes, they are sponsoring this video, although they had absolutely no clue about what I was going to do with it. Okay, so here's the setup I'll be using for this experiment. I have these three little guys here, Hughes & Kettner Spirit of Vintage, Rock and Metal, and they're ridiculously loud. I have three mics in front of the cab, a large membrane condenser, a small membrane, and a dynamic microphone, all from Lewitt. And the cool thing is that I can change the speaker inside of the cab without changing the position of the microphones, thanks to these gravity clamps the mics are mounted on. And it goes like this. Now the grill can be removed, which is another cool feature this Palmer cabinet has. The speaker is loaded from the front, there are 4 mounting screws here, so it's really easy to swap the speaker, and then the mics can go back. I even have a special tool to make sure the mics have the exact same distance to the speaker they had before. This one is from Danelectro, and it makes a perfect measurement tool. So let's get started, and first of all we'll need the Spirit of Vintage amp for some clean tone. And yeah, just ignore the master volume knob position, because at medium gain these amps are ridiculously loud even at 20% volume. And trust me, speakers are getting more than enough juice. It is very loud here, and I will be using some protection. And of course, there is no EQ or any other post-production on the sound captured from the cab. It is what it is. Alright, next one. So, how's the first impression? Yeah, I know, it's kinda hard to hear all the little details when there's such a long gap between the examples, but yeah, of course I'm gonna put them together for you, right now! Well, some of those sounds were absolutely terrible. But there were a couple of useful ones as well. What I was really surprised about is that my expectations were not met by the reality of the situation, and based on what I've heard here in the room, I didn't expect it to sound the way it did through the microphones. In the room, the Eminence speaker sounded awesome. It had just the right amount of high end and pretty nice lows, while Vintage 30 was too bright, harsh, and even unpleasant sometimes. I'm very much used to the sound of Vintage 30 inside of the closed back cabinet, and it really sounds good that way, but here, with an open back one, it really was too bright. So I have a feeling that the Governor is a better match for an open back cabinet than a Vintage 30 in terms of the room sound, and a slightly different mic position should be able to bring back that high end on the recordings. Speaking of mics, I liked different microphones for different speakers for different tones. For example, on Clean and Crunch, I would go with a dynamic mic for the Vintage 30 and with a small membrane condenser for the Eminence speaker. And for everything else, for heavy and heavy metal or metal stuff, I would go with the 441 Flex, which is a large membrane condenser for pretty much everything, or maybe I would mix it with a dynamic mic. But again, a slightly different mic position, and probably any of them can be used on any speaker for any style of music. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope this video was interesting, and I'll see you in the next one someday soon. Hey, you've reached the end of the video, and I really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed it. I actually want to get to know you guys, so before you go, please leave me a comment below. Just, say where you're from, what is your favorite guitar or guitar pedal, and how you came across my channel. If you want to support what I do, other than Patreon, there's another easy and free way to do that. Simply show this video to one of your guitar friends who it may be interesting to, and share it, the video, not a friend, in guitar groups and communities on social media. There's never too many views, and that would really help me a lot. And other than that, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video someday soon.